the court's right. I mean, this is a situation that unfortunately does happen often. As the court knows, my client does have three children in common with Ms. Swartz. So I think that the prosecutor's recommendation would be a good benefit for my client. This is I think the best way to put it, it is a tumultuous situation between my client and the mother of his children. He advises that there's been a lot of this back and forth. He hasn't seen the kids since this happened, even though there is a parenting time order that is in place. I know that that is an issue that is currently going through the front of the court process, but he's going to have to be able to have some communication with Ms. Swartz until the children are at the age of majority. And I think that the ability for him to access the resources through an anger management and a probation would be beneficial. I know that through his employment at Fiber Converters, he's talked about some of the services that are available and meeting with a counselor. And I know that I don't think anything is set in stone yet, but that is something that he's working towards. So I think he is taking this really seriously, and I think he would benefit from that probation. My client doesn't have any type of criminal history. That's what's, a little bit kind of frustrating about this whole process. It looks like this was just something that had been boiling up over time. Unfortunately, these things happen. But again, I think that the benefit for him would be to be able to access those resources on a probation. I do think that if the court were to think that any type of jail time would be appropriate, we'd ask that it be deferred over the course of the probation to see how he does. Again, he does have full-time employment that will be 2 years of employment this coming September. So we'd ask the court to sentence my client to probation and defer any jail time over the course of that probation. Thank you.
Thank you. You didn't get a chance to see that victim impact statement. I got it. I don't know when I saw it, maybe 9:30 or so when I came in on a break. But you can review it there, and the complainant is here. Ms. Davis has joined us now. Ms. Davis, we started with Jalen's, and then we'll go to Darren's. I laid several letters of recommendation that were handed to me about 2 seconds ago on behalf of Yellen Hodges. This is Jalen's, as I indicated. The plea was to domestic violence with prosecutors, no objection to a deferral. I think I mentioned this at the time of the plea. In a domestic violence case, I can't do a deferral unless the prosecutor accepts it. In a drug case, I can. In some other cases, I can, whether the prosecutor agrees or not. But in a domestic violence case, I can only do it if the prosecutor concurs. And for the most part, they do, because they know what it entails. It entails a probation and a domestic violence treatment class, and no drugs and no alcohol and no assaultive behavior. Your father went through one of these when he was young, and he successfully completed it. So the charge becomes at that point non-public. You don't have much of a record. You had some sort of a false pretense a few years ago and maybe a traffic ticket, but no assaultive stuff that I was able to discern. Ms. Davis, you wish to speak to that at all?
As my understanding, this is scheduled for 11 a.m. So
I thought they were both for 10:30.
Yeah, I think mine noticed it 10:30, but
they were on our calendar for 11. So I apologize.
We started 20 minutes late, and so I didn't know what happened. I just thought you were caught up in something else.
Well, we were with our new APA being sworn in. So, this case from the beginning has been difficult. Anytime there's children that are involved and right in the mix, and children that are there at a ball field and other parents and grandparents and people, it certainly elevates the factors where you want to make sure that there's some sort of punishment and that this doesn't happen again. Both the women are here, and would you like to speak? Either of you?
Like reading the statement.
If you'd like to.
I'll read mine.
Okay. This has been very difficult for them. It's been very difficult on the kids. I'm sure, as Your Honor is aware from the statements that were sent in. And certainly, the letters on behalf of Mr. Hodges, Darren Hodges specifically, stating that he's a good friend, he's a good person. The choices that were made on this day were terrible. And it's something that, our goal is to rehabilitate the relationship between the children and their grandparent and father, and the co-parenting relationship. And that's where the probation part of this is going to be key. After meeting with the victims, I'm not certain that this is going to quote unquote stick with Yellen. Your Honor said Darren Hodges did this years ago. Maybe a refresher course on that, because this type of behavior is not acceptable ever, let alone in front of dozens of small children. So
Yeah, this was horrifying for everybody that was there. And I mentioned this before you got, this happens all the time. Several times a year, parents are fighting over their children at a sporting event. Shame on all of them. And so we've seen this over the years, and I'm sure everybody was there, didn't like it. All right, good morning. Would you state your name for the record, please?
Carly Danielle Swartz Friesen.
All right, and you're the mother of the children involved here?
Yeah, stepmom.
Stepmom?
Yep.
All right, so you're not their mother, you're their mother's wife?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
This is for Jalen. Victim's personal reaction. I am scared to go to bed at night. My anxiety is so high. I don't ever feel safe. I'm always checking my doors to make sure they are locked. I am so worried for myself and my children, and I'm very traumatized by all of this. Jalen threw rocks at my head and back. I had a headache for a few days. And then says victim's property loss. I lost time coaching my boys' baseball game as I'm banned from all Centerville parks. My children lost time playing in baseball, softball, and I'm not sure what I wrote there. To be repaid. Oh, I'm asking for that to be repaid. And then I would like $270 refunded due to all the time lost. And then it says sentencing, and this has been a reoccurring issue, and I believe Yellen Hodges should serve some time so it can show him the seriousness of his actions. And I have one for Darren. Do you want me to read that one now, or do you want me to wait?
Yes. No, you can go ahead. You're not the named complainant in the charges that they pled to. You may have been one of the charges, but I believe the charges.
yeah, she was one of the charges.
Which one?
Darren Hodges choked me and
All
threw
right,
me
well,
to the ground.
just a minute. Let me go to Darren's thing.
Count 2, Your Honor. It's the domestic violence allegation.
It's Jalen. Now, I got a lengthy one. No, that's not that. Where is it? Pled no contest to count 2. Assault and battery on Kaylee Swartz. So it's not a domestic violence, it's A and B, but that is correct, Ms. Davis. Carly Swartz Friesen is the complainant in Darren's case, but not in Jalen's case. I'm sorry, so go ahead.
For Darren.
Yes.
I am extremely affected. I can't sleep very well. I have horrible dreams. I keep replaying the crime in my head. It terrifies me daily. My children are having night terrors. My daughter has been sleeping in my wife and I room since this crime happened because she is so scared. I am so scared that I'm constantly locking my doors during the middle of the day. My body is strained from the assault and adrenaline. I also got a cut on my right elbow and a scraped and bruised knee. I'm having discomfort in my hip on my right side after being thrown to the ground. And then property loss. My phone was damaged after I got thrown to the ground. The value of my phone is about $529.99. I lost my coaching position and the ability to attend my children's baseball and softball games. I have lost $273 that I have invested in my children's sport. And then, yeah, the total loss, I just said $273 is for Little League and $529.99 for the damage of my phone. And then I believe the sentence should have the same impact as the impact on myself and my family.
All right. Thank you. All right, so I did get the victim impact statement from the other complainant, which is the mother of the children. And hers is quite lengthy and it goes into some details. That's from Courtney Friesen.
Yeah.
Courtney would like her wife to read it because she doesn't feel comfortable.
All right. They've got it. All right, go ahead.
To whom it may concern, on May 3rd, 2025, I was assaulted by my ex-boyfriend at Adams Park, Centerville, Michigan. Yellen Hodges is the father of my 3 children, Jaden Swartz, 8, Cameron Swartz, 8, Kylie Swartz, 6. Our daughter Kylie was being held in her father's arms as I was attacked by him. I was at Adams Park at 10:30 a.m. where my twins boys were playing a game. I dropped my wife Carly Friesen off because she was a voluntary assistant coach for the boys team and to drop off the boys baseball equipment. I approached Jalen, who was standing by the dugout, asking him where Kylie was because I offered to Jalen that I would take her to her game, which was being held at Wheaton Swanwick Park, Centerville, Michigan. Jalen told me she was already at her field. I asked who took her, and he told me it was none of my business. I left Adams Park and headed to Wheaton Swanwick Park, 1.2 miles away from Adams Park. I arrived at Kylie's game with her equipment. I saw Darren Hodges sitting in a camp chair watching Kylie warm up for her game. I did not talk to Darren the entirety of Kylie's game. After her game ended, Darren went to take Kylie to his truck. I was walking beside them calmly. We were splitting off to go to our own vehicles when Kylie told me she wanted me to take her to her brother's game because she wanted to watch them play. Darren persisted on trying to grab Kylie and telling her they were going to pick up Darren's wife from work. Kylie became uncomfortable and said she did not want to go with Darren, and she grabbed my hand and said she wanted to go with me. I told Darren I would take her straight to Jalen. I also voiced that in 2017, Yellen Hodges and I had a verbal contract stating that Jalen's parents were never allowed to be around our kids unless he or I were present. That agreement has been held all these years until the mid-year 2024. Before I could contact Jalen directly, Darren had already called him, but I did text Jalen as I was heading to Adams Park. As I pulled away from Gleaton Swanwick Park, Darren was following behind me in his truck. He sped through a stop sign into oncoming traffic, almost causing an accident to stay behind me. I arrived at Adams Park in 2-3 minutes and parked my car. Jalen looked visibly upset. I turned my car off as Jalen walked up to me. I got out of my car and turned to open my left passenger door to unbuckle Kylie. As I tried reaching for her car seat, Jalen started yelling and screaming at me to give him his kid. I tried to ask him to lower his voice and to calm down, and I was about to get her out of the car. Jalen continued to yell regarding my request, so I closed the car door so Kylie would not hear her dad yelling at me. I continued to ask him to please stop yelling and cussing. He refused. At this time, Darren walked around the front of my car with his phone up recording. As Darren arrived, Jalen seemed to be more agitated and angry. Darren started to join in with Jalen and began arguing and fighting with myself and Carly. The agreement gets more and more heated, and Jalen forced himself into my car, and that's when Kylie started screaming with terror. I then began pulling on Jalen's shirt, yelling and begging him to stop because he was scaring Kylie and hurting her. Jalen yanked and pulled at her. Kylie was in a 5-point harness. Darren then grabs me and puts his hands around my throat, slamming me against the side of my car, squeezing my throat so I could not breathe. As Jalen was exiting my car with Kylie, who was still screaming in terror, Jalen then began hitting and punching me with his left arm while his right arm was holding Kylie. Jalen ran around Darren, who was still choking me, and tried running behind my car. I managed to pry Darren's hand off my throat and then went over to Jalen, begging him to just hand me Kylie because she was terrified. I was terrified. I had blood dripping from my right arm above my elbow, and very visible red mark from Darren choking me. I tried grabbing Kylie's hand just to let her know that I was okay. But then Jalen yanked her away, causing me to pull Kylie's arm, so I released my grip on her to not cause any pain or injury to her. Jalen then moved to the front of my vehicle where people from the park and parents from the baseball game started gathering towards us. Cops were called and on their way.
All right, let's talk about that. This hearing was, frankly, one of the most emotionally charged and heartbreaking situations you're ever likely to see play out in a courtroom. At the center of it was Yellen Hodges, who stood to be sentenced for a domestic violence incident so volatile it spilled across 2 city parks and left a trail of frightened kids, distraught adults, and an entire community shaken. The victim impact statements painted a vivid, painful picture. The children were having nightmares, terrified to sleep alone. Their mother described her fear in detailed checking locks compulsively, jumping at every noise, and reliving the moment over and over. Even reading the account, you could feel how chaotic and frightening it must have been. Yellen screaming, forcing his way into a vehicle, pulling a child out of a car seat while she screamed, and ultimately hitting the child's mother as bystanders watched in shock. Despite all that, the judge kept his focus on something bigger than punishment. He acknowledged Jalen's lack of serious prior criminal history, which made this outburst all the more alarming. This wasn't someone with a long record of assaults. It was a father who let his anger and need for control overpower any concern for how it would traumatize his kids. The defense argued that probation with counseling and anger management would be the most constructive response, emphasizing Jalen's steady employment and willingness to accept help. The prosecutor was clear. This was not an isolated parenting disagreement. It was violence, witnessed by children who deserved so much better, and everyone involved knew it could have ended far worse. Still, the prosecutor did not object to a deferral of the sentence, understanding that this path requires mandatory counseling and strict compliance with probation terms. Judge Middleton took a balanced approach. He imposed 33 days in jail, crediting 3 already served and deferring the remaining 30 if Yellen meets every probation requirement. The sentence included a domestic violence program that focuses on anger management, fatherhood, and relationship skills, plus a ban on any assaultive behavior, drugs, or alcohol. If Yellen completes the program successfully, the charge could be removed from his public record, a chance to rebuild, though the trust he shattered with his family may take far longer to repair. What struck me most was how the judge talked about the reality of this situation, that no matter how much the adults want to pretend it's just a bad day, the children have already absorbed every terrifying detail. They are the ones left with the memories and the anxiety, and no sentence can undo that. This was a case that showed how quickly unresolved conflict can explode into harm and how critical it is to address it before it ever gets that far. If you found this hearing insightful, consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and letting me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one,